Well, my name is Florencia. I'm from Art Dev. I'm going to be your host today. So thank you for taking the time to join us today for our TED Talk on Java and Jakarta EE on Azure Magic Mystery Show as part of the Remote Engineering Global Job Fair brought to us and to you by ARC. We connect great developers with companies around the world. So if you'd like to learn more about the companies that are actively hiring, we're going to be sharing the link in the chat. It's going to be pinned for you to go through that link if you want to learn more about ARC, okay? So today we're going to be learning about the many ways of effectively deploying a Java and Jakarta EE application to Azure. And to make sure you take full advantage of this talk, feel free to drop all your questions for our speaker in the Q&A section. We'll answer them by the end of the talk. So it's over, you have the chat section and you also have the Q&A section. Feel free to add them, or if not, at the end of the talk, you can keep adding all your questions. Don't worry about also taking notes immediately, since we're going to be sending the recording to you. And yeah, to make sure, feel free to also have that into consideration. So now that we are all in, let's welcome our special guest today. Here with us is Reza. He's a principal program manager for Java on Azure at Microsoft. He works to ensure Java developers are first-class citizens at Microsoft, and Microsoft is a first-class citizen of a Java ecosystem. So, without further ado, Reza, the stage is yours. So, thank you so much. If you want, you can put your camera first to for them to get to know you, and then go to sharing screen, whatever you prefer, or you can start right away.
Yeah, start right away. It's perfectly fine. All right. So I think that's enough of an introduction. Actually, what I'm going to talk to you about is very much related to my day job. So yeah, let me talk to you about what I'm planning to do. I believe I have about an hour, if I'm not mistaken, right? Counting Q&A time, right? Is that right?
What? Yeah, you have to put a time. We have 40 minutes for this talk.
40 minutes. Okay. All right. 40 minutes it is. So we'll finish at 8:40 Eastern Standard, right?
Okay, that's great.
All right. Okay, so in the next 40 minutes, this is what I plan to do. All right, so I'm going to show you, I'm going to basically take a Java Jakarta EE application and deploy it in several different ways on the Azure platform, and basically talk to you about, what are all of the different pathways that are available to you. So the talk is going to be focused a little bit on Jakarta EE developers. So the examples I'll be using, it's going to be Jakarta EE examples. But don't worry too much about that. Frankly speaking, a lot of what I'll talk about is very applicable to if you're just a Java developer. I think that is applicable enough to you as well. And in fact, even if you're not a Java developer, I think you'll get a lot of a flavor of how things look like on the cloud anyway. So yeah, stick around. Hopefully, there'll be something for everyone. A little bit more about what I'll tell you is a couple of different things. So number one, I don't have any slides at all today. So it's going to be 100% live coding, to be honest with you, and we'll just keep going as long as we can. And also, the other thing I'll tell you is don't hold back questions until the very end, right? So if you have questions, just ask them throughout. I'm going to intermittently check the Q&A and the chat, right? And whatever questions that you might have, just ask me in real time, and I'll answer in real time. Last thing I'll tell you is, here's the deal. This is what I'm about to present to you is actually a self-guided workshop. All right, so if you go log on to this GitHub URL, the intent here is that any person can take this content on this GitHub URL and actually do all of the things that some of which what I'll be doing in this session, basically by themselves. Now, I have run this as a workshop before, and end to end, if you don't start with anything at all and you're starting from scratch, it is going to take you about 8 hours to do it. Right? So obviously we do not have 8 hours, we have about 40 minutes. So here's what I plan to do. I plan to cheat a little, and I also plan to make it manageable for you. So basically think of this as a sort of a hands-on introduction to this workshop that I hope you, after this talk, you can go and take a look and basically do the things that some of the things that I'll be doing by yourself. Okay. So with that in mind, let me tell you one other thing. I won't be able to show you everything, right? But I will show you as much as I can in the time slot allowed, and also the cheating part. Basically, I've done quite a bit of work that you would have done in the workshop by yourself ahead of time, and that will hopefully allow me to move a little bit faster than you otherwise would, right? So that's the part there. So what are the different ways that you can run a Jakarta EE application? So I've broken down the major ways here. Okay, so each of these are separate sections in the GitHub repository. So first is virtual machine. So this is very similar to basically what the experience that you may have on your own data center or even on your own laptop, except it's on Azure. You're just really just using virtual machines. Now on Azure, it's a little bit more sophisticated than that, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The other thing you can do is you can do completely the opposite side of the spectrum that really looks like a cloud native experience. And all you do there is if you're a Java developer and you have your jar file or ER file or WAR file, well, everything else is taken away from you. You know, all of the trouble to install and configure your environment, that stuff is all done for you. And basically all you really do in the end is just deploy your jar or ER file and you're good to go. So that's a PaaS experience. Beyond that, we also have obviously a lot of cloud, like a lot of other cloud platforms. We also have Kubernetes. Okay, so this Kubernetes, you can deploy your application, same application using Kubernetes as well. So that's the Kubernetes section that you can hopefully see there. In fact, let me increase the font size a little bit so you can see it maybe a little bit more clearly. Okay, so that is a Kubernetes folder here. And on Azure, we have actually another interesting feature, and that is, suppose you don't want to use Kubernetes, but you simply want to use Docker. So there is a way of doing that as well. It's something called Azure Container Apps, where you simply create your Docker images and then you upload your Docker images in a sort of Kubernetes live. So that's yet another way of deploying applications on the cloud. What I'm going to try to do in 40 minutes is definitely show you the basic way, which is virtual machines. And I'm going to try to see, hopefully there will be enough time for me to show you, for you to take a look at, or for me to show the PaaS way of doing things as well. Okay. So before we do all of that, the first thing we're going to do is just make sure things are running locally on our own machine. That's where we all start. Even if we go to the cloud, ultimately you got to get things running on your own machine, and that's the first step in our journey. Okay. So as I said, what I'll be showing you is not a very fancy application. It's actually simply a CRUD application that uses a certain set of Jakarta EE APIs to do that. And I'll be doing that on my local machine. So here's the cheating part. So I've already installed and configured my environment. Okay, so I've set up Java. I'm running Java SC17. I'm using Eclipse. It's a Maven project in the end. You can use any IDE that you want. I happen to like Eclipse because I've used it for ages. So I've already set up Eclipse. I've set up my environment in Eclipse. I've imported the project into Eclipse already. And you also will need Docker, and that is just to start the database. Okay, so obviously when you're using Azure Container Apps or Kubernetes, you'll definitely need Docker. But in this case, we'll still use Docker just for convenience. Okay, so I do have Docker installed and running, and I have this code on my machine. I've already downloaded the code, and that's really all you need. So the next step is this is a database-driven application. So you need a database up and running, and I'm going to start the database in Docker. And the database I'll be using is Postgres. So I'm going to just take this command here, and I'll show you the command as I'm typing it. Hopefully you can see that. Hopefully it's good enough font. But basically we're doing Docker running a Docker image, interactive. We're going to do this in the foreground. And then we are basically running a Postgres image, the very last command there, and we're running it on port 5432. So we need to specify the port. So let's get our database started. All right, and the database is up and running. We have a database available to us. Now I'm going to go into Eclipse. Okay, so in Eclipse I have my environment already set up. If you take a look at this Maven file that I have, right? So hopefully you can see that well enough. But basically, it is a very simple Jakarta EE application. Really, the major dependency we have is on the Jakarta EE API, but that's about it. Right? So other than that, the dependencies are very, very thin. So next thing I'm going to do is just do a Maven clean, make sure we're also ready, set to go, and clear. Next, we're going to do a Maven package or Maven install, whatever you prefer. In Eclipse, it's actually Maven install. So I'm going to go ahead and do that next. I'm going to try to see if I can increase the font size a bit. No. But basically what happened here is we did the build, and now we have a WAR file. All right. Now I also have Wildfly, which is the app server I'll be using today for our demo. And I also have Wildfly set up on my Eclipse environment already. You can see that here. So I'm going to just right-click this guy and say run as and run on server, and that's going to start up my application on Wildfly. Or so I hope. Yeah, it is happening. Okay. All right. I think something is running in the background. It's a little bit slower than it usually is. I hope everything goes okay. It's always fun doing live demos. You don't know what's going to go wrong. All right. Actually, I think it's okay. So we're going to, or is it okay? I'm not so sure. Jakarta WAR file did not build. Okay. All right. Let's see what happened. This is what happens with demos. You never know if it's going to work or not. So let's give it another try. I'm going to just remove this application, and I'm going to restart Wildfly. All right, Wildfly should be started now. I'm going to go ahead and clean once again. And I'm going to install once again. And I'm going to give this one more try. Then I'm going to give up and go to the next step. Okay, worked this time. That's good. All right, like I said, it's always an adventure doing a live demo. So here's the application. It's very simple. It's just a CRUD application. I'll just enter another entry here. All right, you can see that it works. I'll delete the first one. There's actually a REST interface behind this. I'll show you the REST interface. It's simply REST and coffees. All right, and you can see that yeah, we have our coffees. That's our REST endpoint there. So that's the application. Okay, so we basically ran the application in here. So we are just going to actually, that's all I need the IDE for. So I'm going to go ahead and shut down the IDE. And actually, I'm going to be done with PowerShell. I'm going to just shut that down. Okay, we actually don't need PowerShell anymore either. All right, next thing I'm going to do is show you how this application is actually going to run on Azure next. Okay, so let me open up the new window, go back to my GitHub repo, and where are we here? We're here. Okay. All right. Next thing is we're going to do the same thing on virtual machines. Okay, so let's go into the virtual machines directory. And yes, I have cheated once more, and I've set up a bunch of things on the cloud. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and now log on onto Azure. This is the Azure portal if you haven't seen it before. I'm logging on as myself. All right, so here's the Azure resource groups. All right, so here's what I've done. We need a database. Okay, we're running on the cloud, so we're going to need a database on the cloud. So on Azure, there's actually a really nice way to do that because we have a managed Postgres service. So I've actually created a managed Postgres service beforehand. It takes about half an hour to deploy this. So obviously we don't have half hour to deploy a database, so I've done it ahead of time. So if I go into this resource group, and the resource group is really nothing much more than a way of grouping certain things on Azure. So I have this resource group. And under this resource group, I have several resources, but one of the resources is the database. Okay, so Jakarta EE Cafe DB. This is the Azure Postgres database. If I go into this, you'll see Azure database for Postgres single server. And you'll see there's some activity, right? So I was playing around with this earlier in the morning just to make sure the demo is all ready. So we already have a database up and running. But here are the instructions. I tell you exactly how to do this. Now, don't worry if you don't have an Azure subscription or don't want to pay for it. You don't have to. You can actually just click this link here, and you can get a Azure one-year subscription for free. You can do all of this stuff for free. You don't have to pay anything. So next is you start your own virtual machine. So this is you creating your machine on Azure. So I've done that as well, okay, ahead of time. So if I go into my portal view once again, go home, go to resource groups, and go to my into the resource group that I was speaking with, that I was showing you before. Here's a virtual machine. Okay, so this is a virtual machine that I've created ahead of time. Right, so this is all the virtual machine capabilities. As you can see, it has a public IP address. Okay, in fact, this is a public IP address I'm going to be using to now log into this machine. All right. So I've gone through all of these steps, and now my machine is just up and running on the cloud. So you just saw that it's up and running. In fact, if you go up here, you'll see that, oh, I have to start the server. That means the server has gone to sleep. So just give me a moment. Let me start the server. Okay, start the virtual machine. So yeah, this is more of, this is how live demos go. There's always something that you didn't plan for. So now I need to start this virtual machine, so it's going to take a little bit of time for that to happen. But while that's going on, once I have the machine up and running, I'm going to log on to it using SSH. And for that, I'm just going to go ahead and just use WSL. Hopefully you've seen this before. It's like running Linux within Windows. All right, so that's what we're going to do now. Started the virtual machine. Okay, let me make sure the virtual machine is started. All right, I think it started. So next thing we need to do is take this public IP address. All right, and we're gonna type in. We're gonna log in using SSH. So I'm gonna do SSH wildfly and add the public IP address, and hopefully we'll be able to log in here. So SSH wildfly is a username that I used for this machine. And @ and that's the public IP address of this machine on Azure that I created before ahead of time. So I'm going to hit enter. Yes. Okay, secret. All right. So now on this machine, it looks very much like any other machine on your data center, or maybe even on your own machine, but it's running on Azure. Okay, so next thing I need to do is I need to install a few things on this machine to make sure that it can run my app. But first, what I need to do is update apt. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that. All right, apt update is done. Next step for me is to install Java. Java is not installed on this machine by default. Okay, so if I say java-version, okay, well, I'm not going to get anything, but it's going to tell me how to install Java. I know how to do that already. I'm just going to copy this command from here and run it. Okay, I'm going to say yes. And this is installing Java on my machine. So while this is happening, let me also tell you, we also have base images and solution templates on Azure. So you don't actually have to do all of this stuff like this. You can take a shortcut here by simply saying, hey, already give me a machine with JBoss EAP on it, right, or Wildfly on it, or WebLogic on it, and it'll do all of this stuff for you that actually I'm doing for you now. But I'm showing you this way to show you that, hey, it's that easy. On the cloud, you can the same thing that you would do on your own machine, well, you can do it on the cloud as well. But there's actually much more powerful ways of doing the same thing, namely virtual machine-based images that are already pre-built for you, as well as solution templates that are already built for you. And we have a number of those for all of the popular runtimes, WebLogic, WebSphere, JBoss EAP. All of those things are actually done for you. In fact, you can even set up a cluster very, very easily using solution templates as well. So hopefully my Java install is going to happen very, very soon. And yeah. Okay, done now. So let's do Java dash version to see if Java was installed. And there it is. Now I have Java 17 installed on this machine. Now I will install Maven. Now, normally you wouldn't do this, right? So normally you would have the app server running, on the machine. You don't have to build the image itself on this machine. You'll just use CI/CD pipelines to deploy it. But since we're doing everything by hand, we're going to actually download the code onto this machine and build it ourselves. So next step is to install Maven. So let's go ahead and install Maven. Yes. All right, Maven installed. Next step is for me to download the code, okay, for my own repo, and actually download Wildfly on this machine next. And all you really need to do for Wildfly is actually just download it and unzip it, and you're ready to go. So let's download it using wget, and we're going to go ahead and unzip it. And actually, we need to install unzip. So I'll go ahead and install unzip. Okay, unzip is installed. Now we're going to unzip the zip file. Okay, and basically that'll be my Wildfly installation. And if I do an ls now, well, there's Wildfly, right? Wildfly 26 is what I'm using. Now I'm going to go ahead and download my code on this machine so I can build it just like I did a little bit ago in my IDE. Okay, all right, done. And you can see master.zip sitting right there. I'm going to unzip my application now. Okay, application is unzipped. Right, so there's my application unzipped right there. Okay, next step is for me to go ahead and build this application. Okay, so I'm going to go into Jakarta EE Cafe master. I'm going to go into the IaaS directory. Okay, or rather, I'm sorry, not the IaaS directory. Jakarta EE Cafe directory. Sorry, so one up above. Okay, and Jakarta EE Cafe. All right, and I'm going to do a Maven build. Maven clean package. All right. What just happened? All right, let's try just Maven clean first. Oh boy. Okay, unable to load cache item caused by, could not initialize Google GClib method wrapper. So let's try and find out why this is happening. Oh, Okay, and give any version lower than 17. So apparently I need to provide a Java version lower than 17. So, okay, let's try to lower the Java version. So go up, and what we're going to do is do JDK 11. Okay, and we'll try this once again. So let's go back to the root. Okay, and we're going to try OpenJDK 11. Yes. Okay, now let's try Java dash version and see what we get. Oh, it's still Java 17. So I need to basically make sure to switch the Java version. So Java, see if I can somehow fix this very quickly. How do I do that? Let me see if I can find the instructions from here. Okay. All right, and I'm going to try option number 1. Okay. All right, now let's try Java dash version. Okay, now it's Java 11. So now let's go back into where we were. Okay, cd tilde, cd home. All right, now we're going to go into Jakarta EE master. We're going to go into Jakarta EE. We're going to go into Jakarta EE cafe, and now let's try mvn clean package. All right, you're seeing things happen in real time. All right, so now our Maven file is built. Right, we have our WAR file. Right, you hopefully saw that the WAR file is built for us. Right, we can now continue moving forward and see how far we can get. So next step is for us to go ahead and install our application onto Wildfly. Okay, so we're going to go into change directories back to where we were. All right, now we're going to go ahead and create some directories. Right, so in the same directory, actually, I'm going to just copy this whole thing over just to keep things simple. Copy, and because I'm pretty sure that we're in the right directory, right? So there's the Wildfly directory right there. Yes, it is. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and issue these commands. So all I'm really doing here is installing the database driver. Right? You can take a look at this a little bit later. But ultimately, I'm just taking the database driver and installing it here. That's all. All right. So that is now done. Now I can go ahead and start Wildfly. Okay. So in order to do that, I need to be sudo su first. All right. Now I can start Wildfly by going into the Wildfly directory. So let me do that. Wildfly bin. Okay, and start standalone.sh. That's what I need to do. And hopefully it's going to start up nicely for us. Yep, looks like it is all ready to go. Maybe not. Okay, what's the issue? Let's take a look. More adventures. Actually, I think we can go ahead and I think we can ignore that problem. I don't think it's actually going to be an issue. So we're going to take the public IP address and try it. Should be running on port 80. Okay, let's try the rest of the URL for a moment. Let's see what happened here. Admin console listening on port 90. Actually, that is happening fine. So let's try one more time. Okay, something is not quite right. Why is it? It says refuse to connect. Why is that? Okay, so let's go into this guy here. And I'm going to minimize. It's possible that there is something blocking the port. Okay, so I'm able to log on onto this machine like this. Connection is refused. Let's see what port this is running on. Okay, let me try to shut down and restart the server once again. So I'm going to just Control C from here. Okay, and let's try to start the server one more time. So I'm not really sure why this is not really working. So it is deployed. But I'm not really sure what port that we are running on. Is it running on port 8080 maybe? Okay, let me try to understand if I'm using the wrong IP address. So let me see if I can maybe get the right IP address. 20, okay. That is the right IP address. It's simply not running on that IP address looks like. Refuse to connect. Okay, to be honest, I'm not really sure what's going on. In the little remaining time that I have, I'm going to try to show you at least something running. So I'm going to try to run this using our PaaS solution. All right. So the way we do that is I already have the PaaS up and running. This is the The database server is already up and running.
Uh,
This is how you set, yeah.
Reza, JC is asking you, is the board configured in the standalone file?
Yes, I think so. But for some reason, it's not taking it. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. I'll debug this sort of on my own time. Let me show you something that actually is working. I hope. All right. So let's try the PaaS way. So I've already set up a PaaS as well. Right? So if you go in here, I've set up App Service JBoss AP. We have a PaaS for App Service JBoss AP specifically. Right. So here's that PaaS. So it's called this App Service. All right. So if you look at App Service, I actually have App Service up and running. All right, it is already up and running for me. I'm going to just deploy my application onto App Service instance. So all of that stuff that I was trying to do, this is already done for me. It's just point and click. That's all. Right. So yeah, so what I'm going to do now is basically FTP onto this machine. Okay. So I'm going to open up FileZilla, and I'm going to connect up to this machine, this App Service instance that I've already created. I need to upload the files in a certain directory for the database connectivity to happen. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go into all of these files. These are already done. I'm going to just upload the JDBC driver into site deployments tools. Okay, so it's site deployments tools, and in this directory there's nothing in here right now, but I'm going to upload basically the CLI commands and the let me see, make sure binary mode. Okay, and first I need to upload the JDBC driver in binary mode. So I'm going to say transfer file type is binary, and I'm going to just upload. I'm in the right directory here in the PaaS directory. I'm going to upload the PostgreSQL driver, so that is in there now. And then I need to upload a few more things. So I need to upload the CLI commands as well as the PostgreSQL module. Okay, so this is basically creating the database connectivity for me. So I'm going to switch to transfer mode to ASCII. Sorry, transfer mode to ASCII. Then I'm going to upload my JBoss CLI commands into the same directory, as well as my Postgres module in the same directory. And if there's time, I'll show you what's in these files. But basically, all I'm doing is configuring the database here. Then I need to upload the startup file in the root path. So let me see. Yep, startup, and I'll show you what the contents of the startup file as well. But basically, in the root, I need to upload the startup file. Okay, the FTP root path, and that's all I need to do here. Now I need to go ahead and restart App Service. So before I do that, I can show you the App Service logs. Actually, let me do the restart and then show you the App Service logs. So I'll hit restart. Yes. Okay, then I'll go into the App Service logs and show you the changes that are actually happening. Log stream. So I'm going to show. I'm going to be looking at the JBoss logs right in here in my PaaS service. Okay, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and log on into PowerShell. So I'm just going into my application directory in here. And Jakarta EE Azure. Okay, and I'm going to go into the PaaS directory. So in the PaaS directory, I have another copy of this application. I'm going to go ahead and do an mvn clean package. Okay, and all I'm doing is I'm packaging up the application. Okay, so the application is packaged up. I hope that JBoss is still starting up. So let it start up in a successful way. Okay, while that is happening, let me show you what is in the POM file. So in the PaaS directory, if you look at the Jakarta EE Cafe, and if you look at the POM file, in the POM file, there's a section where I'm actually referencing app service. Right, so here's a plugin section. Okay, so I'm using the Azure Web App for Maven plugin. That's a PaaS plugin. I'm giving it the app name. I'm giving it the resource group that I already have created. I'm saying I want Java 11, and I'm saying I want JBoss EAP 7, and I'm just going to deploy my WAR file to my PaaS service from Maven, basically. Okay, should be just about ready to do that. So let's see if the app service starts up in a correct way. Yep, and I believe that was the data source right there. Okay, deployment status. I think it's basically ready to go. So I am going to go ahead and deploy this application from Maven, and all I need to do is invoke this command to do that. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing, mvn clean package, but this time I'm going to provide the Azure Web App deploy target. Okay, so you can see that it is now deploying into my app service instance, and we should be able to see the deployment also in the live stream. Yeah, you see that is the deployment happening right now. Okay, so it's going to take a little bit of time for the deploy to happen. You can see it says the instance count 0. Instance counts will bump out to 1 as soon as the application successfully deploys. Okay, it's still getting picked up right as we speak. Okay, that's our application. It's getting deployed right now. Instance count, as you can see, is still 0. Okay, I believe the application may be coming up very, very soon. Okay, instance count is 1. So here's the application where it says my application is running. So I'm going to go ahead and try to access it. And there's my application. Okay, so you can see how the difference is, right? So with VMs, you have to do everything by yourself, right? In PaaS, basically everything is done for you. Right? You don't have to install anything. All I really did was install the driver and get ready to go. So I hope this. Sorry, the IaaS example didn't really work. Virtual machine. I have to debug it to see what exactly went wrong. Maybe it's just some little setting that I set incorrectly. But basically, you can. There's instructions. All I really was doing is following the instructions in the GitHub URL. That's about it. So you can do that by yourself, and you can try out to see how things look like with just Docker or potentially with Docker and Kubernetes. So I hope you got something out of the session today, and you'll be able to give all of this a try and take a look at to see how the different ways of installing a Java EE application or Jakarta EE application on Azure using these many different ways is, and maybe figure out what is the right way for you. So I think we may be out of time. If we're not out of time, I'm going to be adventurous and try to see if I can show the Kubernetes way also.
Well, we still have 15 minutes. If you want, we can have like 5 minutes more with this, and then we can jump into a few questions that some of the attendants have left on the Q&A section. What do you think? What do you think, Reza?
Why don't I answer the questions and then try to see if I can
Okay.
get Kubernetes working also?
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Reza. We are expecting for that ending. This was a great talk. It was super dynamic. Thank you so much as well for taking the time to go through the whole thing with such a great energy as well. Now that as I told you, have some time for the questions. Some of you have already put them in the chat, but feel free to keep adding them. We're gonna be answering them. Our first question, Reza, is from Jennifer. She's asking if you have, no, from GC, sorry. Have you tried doing these same deployments on Amazon Cloud?
Show me what the questions are. Let me answer them directly. You don't have to read them. Okay, I see it. Yeah, so question from JC. Have you tried doing these same deployments in Amazon Cloud? Yes, in a prior life. So yeah, the virtual machine experience is very similar with Amazon EC2 as it is for Azure virtual machines, including base images and solution templates. It's about the same. I've also done in a prior life. I've used EKS, which is basically Amazon's Kubernetes service. It's also very similar to hopefully what I'm going to show you in just a little bit of time. And that experience is also very similar. What Amazon does not have is the PaaS experience that you saw in App Service. It doesn't have any feature like that. That is unique to Azure. In fact, even what in the Docker way, the ACA way, that's also relatively unique to Azure. But the VM way, Kubernetes way, you can do it on Amazon as well. What are the main benefits of using Azure to deploy Jakarta EE apps into the cloud service providers? Basically, the same questions as before. So we do a lot more to enable Jakarta EE developers, right? Whereas Amazon and on the other cloud providers really don't do that. So as you saw, we have a PaaS service, and in fact, for all of the major Java EE runtimes, JBoss EAP, WebSphere, WebLogic, we have partnerships with each of those vendors, Red Hat, IBM, Oracle, and through those partnerships, we create solution templates, like I said before, even solution templates for AKS, solution templates for virtual machines, in addition to the PaaS service. And also, we have a lot of guidance and getting started guides. So if you look around in Azure as a Jakarta EE developers, you'll see that there's a lot more resources for Jakarta EE developers on Azure than there are, on the other clouds. If you want to find out more about this, just go open up Google Okay, type in Jakarta EE Azure. All right, it'll take you to this page and it'll tell you all about the unique things that we do to enable Jakarta EE developers on Azure, including some of the things that I just showed you. Which version do you usually use in your projects? I'll be honest with you, for most of our customers, a lot of our customers still are using Java 8 reality, right? So some of them are beginning to move to Java 11. Very small percentage are Java SE 17 above. So I would say primarily 8 and 11 are still the mainstream versions. Okay, any other questions?
If you have more questions, feel free to keep adding them. Also, if it's all right with you, if they can reach you through social media with other questions that they might have.
Yeah. So here's how you reach me. So I'm going to post a link right now in the chat. You don't have to. I mean, it doesn't have to be social media. It can be anything. So all of my contact information is here.
Okay,
Okay?
that's great. Thank you.
Whatever you want, email, social media, WhatsApp, many different ways.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Reza. I have a final question for you as well. If you could like to let us know if someone have given you a piece of advice a year ago that now it's like super useful for you, what that have may have been in programming.
Nothing to do with programming at all.
Okay.
Mhm. I think probably the best advice was be flexible. That's the advice. Right? So if you may have many different opinions of what you want to do or what you think is the right thing, but keeping an open mind about what the right thing is, that's a good idea. Is Jakarta open source? 100%. Yes. Type into jakarta.ee. It is the most open source, thing out there in terms of open standards. Definitely. Yeah, old timer for sure. I've had the same email address for I think almost 20 years.
Okay, that's great. Do you want to like? We have 10 more minutes left.
Yeah,
If you
I
want,
want to
you
give
can
it a try.
go. Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's give it a try. All right, so Kubernetes. So again, all the setup is done. I've set up the Postgres server. I've set up the Kubernetes instance as well. Okay, so if I type in, I'm not, is it here? Let's try kubectl get pods. No resources found. Oh, sorry, nodes. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm connected to the right Kubernetes instance. Okay, so and I'll tell you the way to do that is very simple. You just type in this command, and you're connected up to the right Kubernetes instance. So if I go onto my resource groups, okay, and here we go again, and you see that there is a Kubernetes instance that I already spun up and running. Okay, so here's my Kubernetes instance that is already up and running. There's a few, maybe even some things that I've done just to test things out earlier in the day. Maybe I can show you that insights. Okay, so I've done some things right on this. So but it is a Kubernetes server. Kubernetes cluster is up and running right now. Okay, I'm connected up to the Kubernetes cluster locally, right, using kubectl, using this command here. So now I'm going to try to deploy the application. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to do that. So I'm going to bump up a few directories. All right, and I'm going to go into the Kubernetes directory. Okay, so you'll notice there is a war file that I copied in here from before. Okay, this is the war file that I'm going to try to deploy now. All right, so in order to do that, the first thing I need to do is make sure that I'm logged on into Docker, because I'm going to use Docker Hub to do the deployment. So let me do the Docker login. Okay, so I'm now logged in into Docker. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build my image, right? So I'll explain the syntax as I'm doing it. All right, so there's a Docker file sitting, as you can see, there's my Docker file. So I'll show you my Docker file if there is time. But first thing I'm going to do is try to see if I can do the deployment. All right. So my image is now built. Okay. So because I built the image before, it went really, really fast. So now I'm going to go ahead and from this built image, I'm going to run this image locally, okay, as a test to make sure that everything is actually all right. So I'm going to use the same Docker image name in the build. All right, and I believe it is up and running at this point. So let's give it a try. So I'm going to go back to my browser. And I'm going to try, actually, there's a link right here. I'm just going to use the link, okay? "404 not found." Not good news. E-cafe. Why not? Okay, let me see what is going on. So same thing that was happening in the VM is happening here as well. And I'm not sure why, to be honest. So Control C. Docker image. What is actually going wrong? I need to see. Unable to create requested service. Access to dialect null when dialect is not set. So it sounds like server configuration file and use standalone.xml. So something is going wrong with my database connectivity, basically, is what is happening. Hibernate dialect is not set. Why is that? Okay, maybe this is all the issue is. So let's give this a try. So I'm going to, so what happens is Azure is super secure and it is blocking my access to my Postgres database. So I'm going to try to see if I can unblock my Postgres database. So I'm going to go into the resource group and there's a DB and here's a connection security. And I'm going to add my current IP address. Okay, see if the current IP address matches what I have here. Yes, it does. All right, I'm going to hit save. So now I've whitelisted my IP address. Okay, so hopefully this will apply really quickly. Okay, now let's give it another try. So I'm going to go ahead and run the image again, and hopefully this time the application will start up. I think it's started up this time. Okay, let's give it a try. So I'm going to go back into my browser and try once again. Okay, so the application is now up and running. I'm going to now try to do a deployment really, really quickly. Okay, next thing I need to do is post this Docker image. Control C. Okay, so I'm pushing the Docker image into Docker Hub because I need to download it onto my Kubernetes cluster, right? So do Docker push. Okay, now my image is pushed. Last thing I'm going to do is do the deployment of this application. So the way I do that is simply issuing a kube control command. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, now if I do kube ctl get pods, I should see some pods. Container creating. I have to watch to make sure that the containers come up in a successful way. Okay, one of them is running, two of them is running. I think both of them are running now. Great. Now I'm going to do services. All right, and you can see that there's a load balancer, okay, and it has an IP address. We're going to go ahead and access that guy. All right, and I'm hitting Wildfly, and now let's try the application. All right, so Kubernetes works. Okay, so you can follow the instructions and you'll be able to see all of the Docker file configuration and the Kubernetes configuration. But basically, you can see that it all works in Kubernetes as well. I think I'm going to stop here and not push my luck too much. Who knows what else is going to go wrong if I go any farther today. Yeah, again, I apologize that the VM thing didn't really work. I need to figure out why that is. Why do you personally use Eclipse? I've used Eclipse for 20 years, that's why. I've tried other IDEs. Visual Studio Code, it doesn't have enough features for me. That's why I don't use it. And then IntelliJ, I've used it, but there is no killer feature that I find all that interesting that will make me say, oh, I'm going to stop using Eclipse. Eclipse just works for me. That's why I use it.
Okay, well, Reza, thank you so much for your time as well as and for being here a few more minutes to end this. It was super great. Also, thank you to all of you for joining. I think we have learned very helpful advice today from our speaker. Feel free to reach out to him through social media. You already left his channels and links in the comments box. So, well, if you enjoyed this session, well, this was the last Tech Talk from this global job fair. Thank you so much as well for joining. And well, you also have on the comments the link of arc.dev. If you enjoyed this session, feel free to go over there and of the companies that are actually hiring. We have that link in the chat. And again, thank you so much for your time. We truly appreciate it.
No problem. See you next time.
See you next time. See you all. We're gonna be on the room for several minutes. Thank you so much for joining.